Good morning and welcome to our weekly TTT, Table Talk Tuesday. I had a blank there for a second. So this is the second of our new weekly series entitled TTT, Table Talk Tuesday. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Today, as part of our TTT, we have Andrea Hinojosa, who will share her own reflections this morning. And you may remember this time last week, we had the infamous John Noel, and John did an amazing job speaking to us on net ministries. And today, Andrea will speak to us on her love of St. Joseph, her love of St. Joseph Parish Community, and her love of her new college life. So we are blessed to have Andrea join us this morning, known to me and many as a wonderful, humble, saintly young lady.
Oh, thank you.
Andrea, welcome. Please share with us your own insights on the life of St. Joseph as a man, as a saint, and your love for St. Joseph community.
Well, St. Joseph is a very comforting figure, a very fatherly figure. Whenever I think of him, as well as the community, I think of family, a place where it's very very opening, or very welcoming with open arms, a place that I remember, and a person that I remember to be very very action driven, a place wow, I'm a little nervous. I've always thought of him as, well, he is a man of action. He very much was happy to be there and happy to help Mary, and to be there with Jesus, and to be like a role model for him for a young age. And that's why I remember this place as a place that really molded me into the person that I could become after I left specifically the high school community here.
And looking back to the early years, of St. Joseph, had you been to other parishes prior to coming here, or was this your parish of birth, parish of origin?
Originally, when my family lived deeper in San Antonio, we went to St. Mark's off of Thousand Oaks, and I remember it very vaguely because we moved here when I was 4, and then we started coming here. I actually remember when the big church was being built, driving by, and then once it was built, we started coming here, and I had my first communion here, and obviously my confirmation, my first reconciliation here. So this is a place where I've grown up. This is where all the sacraments I can remember have been here.
It is certainly nice. Thank you, audience. I really appreciate your enthusiasm. It is always nice and certainly historic, to watch and observe a new parish being built, and almost saying deep down, once that church is built, I am going to be a new parishioner. And as you know, there are many churches now in the works as we look to the future of the Archdiocese of San Antonio. We are now in the process of preparing to build 2 new parishes. Our Lady Mother of the Church and St. Jose Sanchez del Rio. And I'm sure that many passerbys who see the foundations of new churches being built are probably experiencing the similar sentiments that you experienced when you would drive by for many, many years on 46 and see St. Joseph Church being built in 2006. And I want to thank my predecessors, Monsignor Janisch and Father Drennan, for their leadership to present to us and give to us in our time this beautiful edifice that now seats 700 people. Andrea, now that you are actually worshipping inside that church, what does it feel like? In the early years and now as an older young lady, what does it feel like now?
As a little kid, I specifically remember thinking, wow, this is really big. Like looking up and up to the ceiling, especially like the center cathedral height. It's very big, and I just remember looking at the beams like, oh, those are really big. That's really pretty. Now it's a bit more sentimental, being like, oh, like this is my home. I remember being confirmed at those steps, taking my first communion. It's a bit more homely, like as if like I'm just like whenever I come back from college, I'm here.
You use the word sentimental,
Mm-hmm.
and it's nice for all of us to revisit, our home parish and our home church. Each and every time I go to Europe, I always make it a point to worship privately in my home parish where I grew up, where I was sacramentalized. And each and every time I visit that church, it's empty. And it's nice to think back of where my dad sat, where my mother sat, where my siblings sat, and where I sat. And also looking back to my first Mass as a priest, celebrating Eucharist on that very altar where I received baptism, confirmation, Eucharist, and celebrating my first Mass in my home parish. Sentimentality is certainly a beautiful trait, especially as we live out our Catholic faith. And we should always engage more and more in the act of remembering, in the act of memory, and certainly in the act of sentimentality. Because what is Eucharist? It is an act of memory. How often do we say and re-echo those words of our Lord at each and every Mass? Do this in memory of me. So it is always important that we look back and retrace our sacramental steps, especially in the parish of origin. You talk about your own participation in the sacraments and your beautiful memory and remembrance around that. Now that you find yourself in a new space in college when it comes to worship and prayer, can you give me some contrasts between the memories of participation here at St. Joseph and now what participation looks like in a college chapel environment?
I go to Texas A&M University, and our church there is St. Mary's. And one thing is a bit different at St. Mary's is all the parishioners, or almost all of them, are my age, people who look like me, brothers and sisters in Christ who are all my age instead of, in a way, it's St. Joseph here, I did choose my faith here, I came here on my own, but in a way, St. Mary's in College Station is a bit more, it's me stepping into the world on my own, like outside of my family, but still home within the Universal Catholic Church. And that's one thing it's a lot more similar than what I expected it to be. There's still so much community and so many organizations that you can be a part of, that I chose to be a part of, and it's a new community that I built there that just feels so much as if we're here.
Beautiful. You talk about, participating with your peers. There are many peers, I'm sure, in your own circle. that may be Catholic, that may belong to other denominations,
Mm-hmm.
but don't necessarily practice actively their respective faiths. Do you have conversations with those peers who are inactive? Do you discern in conversation with them what happened along the way to the point of becoming so, inactive or apathetic,
Mm-hmm.
not just in faith but in faith life and in faith practice?
Yes, well, it's no secret that like once children leave home, it's a real testament to their faith. So while it's not the first conversation to pop up whenever you meet someone, like that's a bit of a tough one and a scary one. But when it does pop up, when you actually start to like get deep with someone, with a new person in your life, well, not new during this conversation, but it's I choose to approach it in a more this is why I feel it, because especially in the age where I'm at, no one wants to be approached saying you're doing this wrong. They want it more as like an invitation, being like, come with me, like let me show you my experience. It's not me neglecting what you experienced when your life prior, like let me show you why I love it. And that's the most that I can do, really. Like I can pray for them and I can talk, we can have the conversation. Like I don't hide my faith. I let people know that I'm Catholic and that it is what I choose to do, and I let them know why I choose to do it. And the most I can do is ask them to join me in what I experience.
That is so beautiful. Our audience certainly, can testify to those feelings. As I hear you speak, Andrea, remind me again, you are studying architecture, and I have no doubt, please God, when this parish starts to prepare to build a new family life centre, we will need architects, and I pray and hope when you graduate that you will be part of the bidding process. What better person to engage in the process than one of our own, and certainly a young graduate in architecture. I do like the way you use language, especially contrasting I and you. That certainly would be very apt advice in the context of counselling. In counselling, we always encourage, adults and young adults never to use the word you, but always to use the word I. For example, I was very disappointed when I had to experience this. We should never use the word you. It comes across as very condemnatory and judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the very fact that you are able to use the word I and my. Let me tell my experience of my faith. Let me share how I understand my faith. And once the person on the receiving end hears the word I and never the word you, they're sold.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like the fact that you are able to use the word I in the context of evangelization, and I encourage you and my audience present and those watching never to use the word you. Always use the word I and my, because that in itself is captivating, it's enticing, and it's amazing how many folks will be sold because it comes across as non-judgmental. Moving forward, Andrea, as the years move on in COVID-19 and so much uncertainty, how has this past year been for you in light of COVID?
In what aspect?
In the classroom setting or the non-existence of classroom setting, in the study environment, in the library context, in the cafeteria context, in the socializing context. How have you survived COVID?
My roommates definitely help. My two roommates, they do make it a lot easier. And I was one of the lucky ones where one of my classes were in person, but we were very much socially distanced, very far apart from each other. But the more online classes were a bit of a struggle to pay attention in. Being totally honest, there were a few lectures I did have to rewatch, and some assignments I need to really catch up on that did get away from me, but it was manageable. I am excited for this coming semester to have more on-campus activity and more in-person classes to be able to speak one-on-one with the teacher instead of over email, which is a bit of like cat and mouse game sometimes.
Yeah, many in our audience can identify with that fact that, you know, watching a screen 24/7, online classes, you know, can be very, very trying and challenging and even boring. Yeah, and that's why I encourage my audience, when you watch this, you know, please don't switch us off. I know watching a screen with me and Andrea, or Andrea and myself, can be very maybe time consuming, it can be even boring, but you know, if you can at all, watch us. You know, we are trying to find innovative ways to continue communication with the outside world, because you know, it's beautiful to do this, but at the same time it's even more difficult for you to watch us on a screen, and it can be boring, and having to watch me again, I'm sure, can be tiresome, but at least you can watch Andrea, and we will have a different guest each and every week. So we're blessed. Even with COVID, many graces are at work. We would never have thought of doing this if we never had COVID. This is innovative, it's new, and it's fun. You know, and I come alive around something like this, spontaneous, spirit-filled conversations. You know, as we bring this segment to a close, you know, I'm holding in my hand the Catholic Teen Bible. You all may remember Nathan Oliver, who died sadly this past year. So unexpected and so, you know, very surprising for all of us and shocking too. But this was his Catholic Teen Bible. And each and every time we interview our young adults, we kind of hold this up in memory of Nathan Oliver, who loved our young adults and who worked hard with our young adults in-house and even on many excursions. But please remember his soul, and please remember his grieving parents, Jeff and Marlon, and their children. But I thought I would close with a beautiful passage that comes from the book of Wisdom, the pursuit of wisdom, in the words of Ben Sirah. How long will you deprive yourself of the food of wisdom? How long will you deprive yourself of wisdom in general? How long endure such bitter thirst? I open my mouth and speak of wisdom. Gain wisdom for yourselves at no cost. Take her yoke upon your neck, that your mind may receive her teaching. For she is close to those who always seek her, and the one who is in earnest always finds her. So on that note, please, please, please continue to wear your masks. Wear your masks in public, wear your masks in church, and please continue to follow social distance and protocols put out by church and state. Andrea, it's a blessing to have you. We admire your faith, we admire your enthusiasm, we admire your love for St. Joseph, and we admire your love for your peers. May God bless you, may God bless our audience present and absent, and come join us next week for another surprise guest for TTT. God bless. Good afternoon.